everyone, it's Alyssa and this is Always Cinema Chic. Today I'm going to give you my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time and then follow that up with the Blu-ray releases for October 24th, 2017. So I've got my Haunted Mansion dress on and I am ready to talk horror. So coming in at number 10 is High Tension. This film came out in 2003. It's a French horror movie. It's about two girls who go to a country house for the weekend and this killer just chooses them out of everyone who he wants to take and kidnap, and he throws them in the back of a truck. But one of the two girls decides that she's going to fight back. So you get chainsaws, you get a big wooden bat with barbed wire wrapped around it, which looks suspiciously like the weapon that Negan uses in The Walking Dead. And this movie is what got me into horror movies. I kind of watched them in the 90s, but when I saw this movie, it just made me go back and watch so many horror films that I'd never seen before. It just has the classic feeling of the jump scares. It is super bloody. This is probably one of the bloodiest movies on my list. And it's got some psychology to it. There's a bit of a twist ending, so it has a lot of what you're looking for, and it's also a lot of fun. So coming in at number 9 is The Faculty, and this is another one that I know not everyone is gonna love this movie. I understand it, but for me, it really means something. So this came out in the late 90s when all of those teen horror movies were coming out. And I was a teen in the late 90s, so of course I was obsessed with these kinds of movies, but this to me was a cut above the rest, and that's probably because it's directed by Robert Rodriguez. And so the story stars Josh Hartnett, and he plays Zeke, who's kind of this fake drug dealer, and he starts to notice that the teachers are acting really differently, and it seems like they're aliens. So the movie has a real invasion of the body snatchers kind of a vibe. It's funny, there's a great sense of humor, it's got a good like 90s soundtrack, so I really like it. And it kind of has that Breakfast Club feel where all of the characters, they're all from different kinds of groups and they're working together and they don't know if they can trust each other, and is one an alien and have you been infected? I don't know. And it's just a really fun movie. Coming in at number 8 is The Witch, and this is directed by Robert Eggers. This is his first movie, and what a first film to come out with. This is so eerie and it gets under your skin. So it takes place in 1630 in colonial America, and it's about this family that's actually been ostracized by the town because they are aggressively religious, and their child just disappears and they start to think that there's a witch in the woods, and it's very creepy, and you kind of feel like you are a lobster getting boiled when you're watching this movie. When I saw this for the first time, I'd say about 30 minutes into it, I looked at my husband and I was like, this isn't that scary. Why did everyone say this was such a scary movie? And then by the end of the movie, I was totally cooked. I was done. I had to stay up for 2 hours. I couldn't go to sleep. I was horrified. So it's like a slow burn, and you don't realize how terrifying it is until you get to the last 10 minutes. There is beautiful cinematography, some really eerie shots. Absolutely love this movie. So coming in at number 7 is It Follows. This was actually on my list for top 5 streaming for Netflix. And I just love this movie because it's so stylized and it has that 80s feel, and the music and the shots, and it's very saturated and beautiful. And what I liked about this film is that the characters really help each other out, and you don't always see that in horror movies. So it's about Maika Monroe's character, who ends up sleeping with this guy that she's seeing, and as a result she gets infected with this supernatural being that's just going to follow her everywhere she goes, and it moves super slowly. It's really scary images, and she spends the movie trying to figure out how she can get rid of this being. The music is great, just the whole atmosphere is so on point. It has such a distinct tone and feeling. not everyone loved this movie, but I loved this movie. So coming in at number 6 is Carrie, directed by Brian De Palma. This is one of those classic horror films that I absolutely love. It's one of my favorites. So it's Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie, and you don't realize how scary it is until you see it again, and in certain moments you go, whoa. So Piper Laurie is a really scary mom. She locks Carrie up in her room. There's a lot of kind of abuse and neglect there, and it's a very religious household. So you have that element of being scary, but then Carrie is telekinetic, and she's getting bullied, and it all leads up to that one great scene that everybody knows about, and it's just so fun when you are watching it. And this may not be the only Stephen King movie on the list. So coming in at number 5, Rosemary's Baby. Not scary per se, definitely some horrifying images, but this is sort of like art house horror, and Roman Polanski really gets the pacing right, and Mia Farrow, she is so good in this. And there are moments that are scary, like the intrusiveness of the neighbors, or the fact that Mia Farrow's doctor tells her she can't read books, that it's going to put thoughts in her head, all the way down to that one horrible, horrible scene that I think is so scary to this day, where it's that kind of satanic rape scene that you're not sure, is it a dream, is it not, until you get to the end. And it really is disturbing, that scene, and Mia Farrow's performance is incredible, and what makes this film so scary is how realistic it is, and this started that whole trend of realism in horror movies. So Roman Polanski had said he wanted to make a movie that just felt like this is real and this is what would happen in this kind of, unrealistic scenario. So coming in at number 4 is Alien, and this is one of my favorite movies, and I was really torn. Is this more science fiction or is this more horror? And then I started to think about it, and the fact that I waited until my 20s to actually watch this movie because I was so afraid of the alien, it kind of told me probably horror. It's probably closer to horror. And what I love about this movie is it's just so slow paced, and then you get these bursts of violence and horror. The alien is so scary looking. This has to be the scariest alien that's ever been created, with the, acid coming off of its teeth. It's just horrifying. And, even though it's slow, it really builds, and it is one of my favorite films, with one of the most iconic characters with Ellen Ripley, and the fact that Sigourney Weaver is just such an icon in this movie. That first one is always going to be my favorite of, the whole series. Okay, coming in at number 3 is The Babadook, and this was also on my Netflix list. I love this movie because it's one of the best psychological horror movies that I've seen. So it's an Australian film, stars Essie Davis, and it's all about this woman just lost her husband, and she's dealing with her son, who is not only devastated at the loss of his father, but he's really acting out and he really misbehaves. And one day this children's book kind of mysteriously shows up, and she reads it to her son, and then all of a sudden that unleashes the Babadook, and this monster, you don't see him that often, but when you do, he is really scary. It's such a suspenseful film. It's genuinely scary. Some movies on this list I just love, but they don't actually scare me that much. This movie is so frightening to me. Essie Davis gives one of the greatest horror performances I've ever seen, and where the movie goes in terms of psychological realms is just mind-boggling. I didn't expect it to go there. All right, coming in at number 2 is 28 Days Later. Oh, love 28 Days Later. So this came out in 2002. It's directed by Danny Boyle. It, to me, has so many elements that have influenced The Walking Dead. So I looked it up, and The Walking Dead actually didn't come out as a comic until 2003. So this movie definitely came out first. And what makes it so scary is the realism and the minimalism that's used throughout. There's not, you know, a ton of money spent on this film. It's shot digitally, but there are such eerie images all the way from the zombies to the actual humans that are way worse than the zombies. And there's one scene in the very beginning that took my breath away. London empty, with no one around except Cillian Murphy, and it really looks like the end of the world, and it's one of those iconic shots for me. And what I love about this movie more than anything is, yes, it has the horror, it's definitely scary at certain points, but it all comes down to love and looking at who we are as humans. So this is a horror movie that is definitely going beyond what the genre usually asks of audiences, and that's what I love about most of the films on this list. Some of them are just kind of fun, but most of them really do say something deeper about our society and who we are as a culture. So coming in at number one, I feel like obviously it's been staring you in the face, is The Shining. This is just one of my favorite movies of all time. It's my favorite Stanley Kubrick film. You cannot get more iconic than Jack Nicholson's performance as Jack Torrance. He is phenomenal in this film. And what I love about this also is the setting. The idea of going into a hotel for the winter and being a caretaker. I saw this movie when I was pretty young, and I don't know, the whole setting just really enticed me, and the scary images with Danny, with the twins, but more than the twins, that old woman in the shower, that to me is one of the scariest scenes I've ever seen in my life. And it's not, you know, scary throughout, but it just gives you such an uneasy feeling. And once again, I love this because it's just so psychological. So once Jack comes into this kind of haunted hotel, he starts to be sort of invaded, I guess you would say, by the spirits of the hotel, and he turns violent on his family. But you have to say, is it really the spirits, or is it this man's inner psyche? And there are so many theories about this film, and I would definitely recommend that you watch Room 237 if you haven't seen it yet. That's a documentary about the movie. It definitely has some theories that are a little bit far-fetched, but that's okay, because there are some that I think are dead on. You can stream it on Netflix, and then you can just rewatch The Shining after. This is going to be the movie that I'm watching this weekend for Halloween. It is one of my absolute favorite films, shot beautifully, very suspenseful, and every image in a way is iconic. So that is my top 10. I'm probably gonna have to check the list that I know you've been seeing me look at for this whole time. So coming in at number 10 is High Tension. Number 9 is The Faculty. Number 8 is The Witch. Number 7 is It Follows. Number 6 is Carrie. Number 5 is Rosemary's Baby. Number 4, gotta check, is Alien. Number 3 is The Babadook. Number 2 is 28 Days Later. And number 1 is The Shining. I would be so curious to see what you guys would say for your top 10 horror movies. These are just my favorites. They're my preferences. They mean something to me in my life. That's why I chose them. So I really want to know which horror movies mean something to you. So please leave a comment below. So now on to the Blu-ray releases for October 24th, 2017. So the big movie coming out is War for the Planet of the Apes. That stars Woody Harrelson. I'm excited to see this film. I actually purposefully did not look up a lot about it. I saw that it got very good reviews. I know I'm going to see it, and so I just want to kind of go into it fresh and clean and just see what it's all about. The next big movie coming out is Annabelle Creation, which got so much better reviews than the first Annabelle. This isn't exactly my type of horror movie, but it did get excellent reviews, and I'm sure it's very suspenseful. And then the third, which, you know, many people say worst movie of the year, the Emoji Movie. I don't know if I'm gonna ever watch this. I feel like maybe I should, just so I can put it on a list at the end of the year for, you know, worst movies of 2017, but it's coming out. And then the last one that I think is important is Personal Shopper. And Kristen Stewart plays a personal shopper for a celebrity in Paris, but it's much more dark than that. She has just lost her twin sister, and I'm pretty sure there are elements of a ghost within the film. It got excellent reviews. Her performance got outstanding reviews, and it is definitely a smaller film that I know I'm going to check out, and I think that it's something that probably you should check out as well. And I'll definitely be doing a review on that film in the weeks ahead. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Once again, leave me a comment saying what your favorite horror movies are. If you think I got anything wrong or left something out, please let me know. Like and subscribe, and remember, it is always in fashion to stay in, get dressed up, and make it a cinema chic night. Bye everyone.